What's up, guys? I thought what's up? No, let me start that again. What is up, guys? I hope you had a good day yesterday. It is Saturday, the start of a new weekend. Now, today I thought I would do a little video talking about something that I thought would be a good thing to talk about. So I want to talk about the time that my nan passed away a few years, 3 years ago. So this week Wednesday marks 3 years to the day she passed away. She passed away on the 22nd of January 2022, which was a Saturday. And this week Wednesday marked that 3-year anniversary of her passing. Now I remember a lot about the day I found out that she wasn't going to she wasn't going to well, she was going to pass away, basically. It was a Thursday. It was the 20th. She'd been in hospital for a while. She'd gone in with an infection, and the infection had spread to her brain, and they were looking to actually fit a pacemaker, but she was 2 weeks to have the pacemaker fitted, and they were waiting for her to get a little bit stronger before they fitted the pacemaker. But she wasn't really getting any stronger. She was getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And obviously, you know, it was really sad, hard to see her just getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And when my mum came home from my other nan's house on the Sunday, and told me that the infection had gone to her brain, I'd started to fear that she wasn't going to pull through, that she was going to pass away. And I remember on the Monday, I'd had this weird feeling the whole day that someone we knew was going to pass away sooner than we realised, but I couldn't quite understand why I was getting that feeling. But it was, as I said, it was a feeling I'd had for most of the day, and I just couldn't shake it off for some reason. You know, I think that I always had that fear. You know, I think it was, it was like I knew something was going to happen, but I couldn't place my finger on what. So then on as they were talking about putting her into a care home, and they said that they'd have her in the care home for 28 days, and if she made any progress, they would let her out of the care home. But if she didn't make any progress if she hadn't made any progress within that 28 days, she would have to stay in the care home permanently. Which at the time I thought was a bit weird, because they don't usually say that. So on the Thursday, my dad was with my nan on the Thursday morning, and she was sat up in bed, eating her breakfast, happy as Larry. And he'd gone home on the morning. I think he'd either come home or he'd gone to work that day. I can't remember what it was. But he was going back to the hospital in the afternoon, and the doctor called him, and my dad had said to him, talk to me when I get to the hospital. So when my dad got there, this was about 3:30 in the afternoon, the doctor had said to him that her heart rate had slowed right down, and she was basically at the end of life stage. So he phoned his sisters, they got to the hospital, and they were with her until the Saturday. But my dad's sister Margaret, she left to go and do some shopping on the Saturday. My dad had already gone home. He'd already gone home, had a bath and that, and got some clothes on, and had even actually tried to have a hip on the sofa for a bit, but couldn't do it. So he'd gone back to the hospital. She was with her, and he was with her on the Saturday afternoon at 2:00, and she passed away. He said that she sort of pulled her face like this, and that was it, she was gone. I remember on the Thursday when my mum came home and told me, what was going on, because I didn't know what was going on. Because I was here on that day, and my mum was at my great nan's house. And she came home, I heard it coming. And I came out of my room and I went to the top of the stairs. And I said, "Hello, Mum." Now, she sort of looked up, but she didn't say anything. She sort of went like that and asked for me to come down the stairs. So I didn't, so I thought, oh, like, and she had that, like, because when you can tell when, when something's wrong, as as a person has that kind of look on their face, like, that something is wrong. And she had that look on her face, like, you could tell that something was wrong, like something wasn't right. And I started, and it was when I got downstairs, she told me to go and sit down in the front room. Now, I thought that was a bit odd. She didn't usually say that. Like, she didn't usually say, "Oh, go and sit down in the front room." So I knew something was something was wrong. But I couldn't quite place my finger on what it was. I mean, I had a slight inkling of what it might be, but I didn't want to think it was what it was. I thought, I wanted to think it was something else. And obviously it was when I sat down on the sofa, my mum told me that my nan was dying, and I couldn't quite believe it, to be honest. It really did knock me for six. It felt like someone had literally come running up to me, just gone bang and punched me, run up to me about 75 miles per hour and gone bang and punched me straight in the stomach. I felt really sick, like I wanted to be sick, but I didn't throw up. Like, I felt my chest tightening. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I think I was probably having a panic attack. I didn't want to, obviously, I would say to my mum, "I can't breathe." If she would say to me, "Sit down, sit down." When I sat down by the side of her, I put my head on her shoulder and I just sobbed. I sobbed like I'd never sobbed before. I mean, I think the reason why it was so hard was because it was like the first family member, the first time I was properly able to understand death, I was old enough, because when my great granddad died back in 2007, God rest his soul, I was only 5 years old at the time. He died in May of 2007, and I turned 6 in November 2007. So, I mean, obviously I wasn't really old enough to properly understand what death meant. I wasn't really, old enough to understand the finality of it. Obviously I remember when my mum told me that my great granddad had died. I remember, vaguely remember asking her, when is he coming back? And I remember her telling me that, heaven must be, a really lovely place, because when our loved ones go to heaven, they don't come back. They go there and they become angels, in the sky. That's what I remember her telling me. And that was like the first sort of real understanding I got of what death meant and, the finality of it. But when my nan obviously passed away, a few years ago, I was properly old enough to kind of understand it all. To be honest, I didn't, for that day, the first day, as we had our phones on all night on the Friday. I had my phone on all night. My mum had her phone on all night, so my dad could get hold of either one of us. Every time my mum's phone was going, we were jumping 10 foot in the air, so we were, thinking it was my dad about wanting us to let us know that she'd gone. But thankfully it wasn't. But I mean, it was just, it was like, I didn't want to believe it was, that this was actually, that was actually happening. Like, I wanted somebody to shake me and wake me up and tell me it was just a really bad, I was just having this really, really bad dream. I didn't want to accept that my nan was actually dying and was going to pass away at some point within those coming days. Like, I wanted to believe that this was all just a horrible nightmare, and I was going to wake up, and people were going, and I was going to wake up at some point. But, it was like I knew it was real, but it was just, like, I just didn't want to believe it was real. Like, I couldn't. It was something that I really kind of struggled to come to terms with. Obviously, I was home on the Saturday. My mum came back from my great nan's house, and she told me that my nan had died at 2:00. To be honest, like that, it was hard because I was very, I was incredibly close with my nan before she passed away. I was probably the only one of the grandkids that she actually saw like regularly. You know, she didn't really see my sister all that much. Um, she didn't really see that much of her other grandkids, but she saw me quite often. So, um, and it was funny because we had spoken about that time before. Like we'd said, oh, I wonder what the day, what like, talking about the time that she'd pass away, and how it would all play out. What would happen, because at the time, my dad and his sister Gloria, there was a lot of awkwardness between them. Like they hadn't got on with each other for years. They hadn't really spoken to each other properly, but for years. Basically since they were kids, to be more precise. Um, but it was like after my nan passed away, in that January, they both became incredibly close. Like, when you look at them now, you wouldn't think that they were the same two people that hadn't spoken to each other for God knows how many years. You wouldn't think that you wouldn't think they were the same two people that hadn't got on with each other for years. Because they're so close now. But it's more his other sister Margaret that my dad is still mad with, because, well, obviously, as I mentioned earlier on as I mentioned before, on the day that my nan passed away, like at the time my nan passed away, she wasn't there. She'd left the hospital to go and do shopping. And my dad has always kind of held that against her, because he's always been so angry at the fact that she left to left the hospital to go shopping when her mum was dying. And it was like, I can understand him being annoyed at that, but I guess maybe she couldn't really cope with it, to be honest. I guess she was finding it too difficult. That's all I can think of. But, at the end of the day, it was a difficult time for all of us, because my nan meant so much to, every single one of us, really. I think, to be honest, I was like, how is this happening? I was like, thinking like, how is this happening? Why is this happening? It all felt very surreal, I remember, like the first few days. After she'd passed away, it was all very surreal. Now what was funny, right? My nan, she loved to have three mates. My dad always used to buy her like loads of boxes of these three mates. And what happened was, on the Sunday, the day after she passed away, I was going to my other nan, so my mum's mum. I was going to her house, and I stopped to cross the road, and I think it was like a Tesla's delivery truck came past me, and a box of and what fell out of it and landed right by my feet, a box of Cadbury's Cremates. Talk about a strange coincidence. It was like she was giving me a sign that she was like, hey, it was. I remember when my dad came here on the Saturday night, he was really crying. I'd never seen him crying like that, to be honest. This was the thing. Like, before that day, I'd never seen my dad cry, but seeing him cry like that for the first time, it was horrible. It was just like, it just had like so surreal, like. I'd never really imagined, life without her. I never really thought about how life would be without her. It's still very. I mean, I've not been to my dad's house now for. Obviously, my dad and my mum don't live together, and the way those two are like, they'd never live together. It would never work. I think if they lived together, they would probably end up throttling each other. To be fairly honest. So my dad always lived with his mum, and obviously I think he still finds it nothing else. I think he probably still finds it weird even now. Going home from work to an empty house. It's like, I think it was also sad last year with Freya, right? I mean, 12 last year. Because obviously my nan, she never got to meet her right now. And I think she would have been so happy at knowing that she was gonna be at right now again. Like, I think she would have been shocked. I think she would have been quite shocked, to be honest. As I don't know if she ever really expected to be on it right now again, but there you go. Um, I mean, 3 years, sometimes when I think about the fact it's been 3 years, like, I still can't quite believe it has been 3 years. Because it doesn't feel like it's been that long, but it has been that long. Um, it's been it's been three, tough years. But I mean, we still miss her every day, I don't think there's ever gonna be a time where we won't miss her. Um, she certainly won't ever be forgotten, that's for sure. We'll always remember her so fondly, like, she was just an incredible person, I remember she started winding my dad up. I remember when, like, me and my dad had come back, from shopping one day. We went back to his house, and my dad had just sat down, and my nan said, "Oh, I'd love a cup of tea." And my dad went, "Oh, for God's sake!" So my nan turned around, she went, "No, I didn't ask for for God's sake. I asked for a cup of tea." Like, she was so funny, bless her. But yeah, she's someone who won't ever be forgotten. 3 years, but these last 3 years without her has been incredibly tough. But we've all gotten through it. We've all gotten through it. We're all. I mean, we do miss her. There's not a day that goes by where we don't miss her. Or we don't wish that she was still here with us. But at least she's not suffering anymore. At least she's not in pain anymore. But life without her these past 3 years has been incredibly tough. It has been incredibly tough. Just give me a minute. Oh. It's right here, yeah. I just had to take a moment. I see myself getting a bit emotional, myself getting a little bit emotional talking about this. It's funny how I still, like, even now, even when I talk about this now, like, I still find myself getting emotional. You wouldn't think I still find myself getting emotional talking about it, 3 years down the line, but I still do, like. I think the reason why I still get so emotional talking about it was because it was like such a hard time in my life, such a difficult part of my life. Because before then, I never really understood, really properly understood what it was like to lose someone that you loved and lose someone that you were so close to. But after my nan passed away, I won't say I went into a depression, but I just wasn't myself. Like, I found myself getting angry at people for no reason. I was getting I found myself getting really angry at things such as silly little things that I would never normally get angry with, to be honest. Obviously I wasn't really eating much. I wasn't. I just wasn't myself for a while. The grief just kind of really overwhelmed me, and it kind of consumed me a little bit. And it took me a while to kind of get through that grief and kind of come out the other side a little bit. And I think I think it hit all of us very hard. But that was the thing I found easier, the easiest thing about it was the fact that I knew that there were other people who felt the same way I did. Like, I'm not saying there's a right or wrong way to deal with grief or whatever, but I did find it easier dealing with grief, obviously with having my family around me and having other people around me that were feeling the same way I did and had been kind of impacted in the same way that I had been impacted, and knowing how, and it was good to have so many people who knew how I felt, you know, and who were able to understand how I felt because they felt the same way that I did, that I did. It was kind of that relief for me in a way. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little video anyway of what I would do. A little video talking about that. Thought it'd be a nice little thing to talk about. I will see you for another video soon. Bye bye.